Hello, grade 8s. Today we are going to be taking a look at different types of cells. So you should have this set of notes in front of you if it was handed out to you. For those of you who left early to basketball, you will be able to find this on your Google Classroom. So please pause for a moment and take a look at your Google Classroom to find this note sheet. Okay, let's get started. So we're taking a look at different types of cells, and there are two major types. So let's get our highlighter or pen to underline. Two types, and these are prokaryotic and eukaryotic. So these things actually are going to mean something to us. These prokaryotic, that includes things like bacteria and archaea. So bacteria and archaea are very small, very simple. We're going to draw a little sketch of them, and I encourage you to draw a sketch for yourself too. And they look a little bit like that. You might have a little tail. Changing colors. Inside they might have some squiggly looking genetic material. That's their DNA. The instructions to make more bacteria and bacterial parts in case anything needs to be fixed. And of course there are going to be some little teeny tiny looking mini factories called ribosomes. These ribosomes are going to be making the proteins that make the bacteria. One last thing that some bacteria might have, and some archaea might also have, is they might have a wall around the cell just for extra protection. Okay, so these are very small, very simple. Bacteria often come in sausage shapes, known as rods, ball or sphere shapes, and they also come in spiral shapes. So there are many different varieties of bacteria that exist. These are the main three shapes, and they're very small, very simple. So what we're going to see when we do our lab next class is that the bacteria are going to look very, very, very small. Okay, very small compared to the other cells. So next up, we've got our eukaryotic cells. We can highlight some of these things here for ourselves. Here we are. Eukaryotic cells. That includes plants, animals, fungi, seaweeds, protozoans, basically everything else that is not bacteria or archaea. So that's what we're going to write down right here. Everything else. Okay, so we're going to draw a sketch of one of these eukaryotic cells, an example of what an animal cell might look like. Don't worry if your sketch isn't that nice looking. You do have a handout that you've been given or is on your classroom that you can take a look at, and you're going to label those, but just to get an idea. So this little tiny one, that would be zooming out your bacteria and comparing it to an animal cell. You can see how big the animal cell is in comparison. The animal cell is going to have its genetic material inside of a membrane, and that is called a nucleus. So let's get those colors in there. A nice squiggle of DNA. And there's going to be a whole pile of other things inside here. There are going to be some structures called organelles, or mini organs with special functions. So you might have one around here that kind of extends from that nucleus. You might have one over here, a Golgi, and it has a particular purpose. You can have some of those powerhouses of the cell, those mitochondria. And actually, they look a little bit like bacteria themselves. Some people think that they may have come from bacteria that were once free-living and somehow ended up stuck inside of a cell. You're going to see other sorts of things like little tiny containers called vesicles, just to hold stuff. So there's many things inside of one of these cells. That's a lot more complicated than your prokaryotic cell, which we just drew. That was a lot easier to draw. Okay. So we're going to highlight again this organelles, which are like mini organs. They have special functions. Okay. All right. So within the eukaryotic cells, we've also got more categories. We've got plants versus animals. They have most of the same organelles because, well, they're both eukaryotic, most of the same organelles. But let's take a look at this chart down here. There's going to be some differences. So let's see what is the same and what is different. Okay, so cell membrane, check. They both have a cell membrane. Cell wall, check. Wait, no. There's no cell wall in these animal cells. So that is something quite different. Okay. Plant cells, check. They have chloroplasts. No, animal cells do not. Okay. That is looking to be something quite different. Cytoplasm, check. Check. Mitochondria, check and check. Nucleus, check. Check. Vacuoles, check, check. Vesicles, check and check. So let's answer, what are the key differences between plant and animal cells? Well, we just circled two of these guys. So let's see, it looks like the plants have two extra things that the animal cells do not. So let's write that in here. Plants have cell wall and chloroplasts. Okay, so we've got cell wall and chloroplasts. Let's draw ourselves a sketch of a plant. A plant, of course, is going to have a cell. There you go, plant cell. And now we're going to draw a big box around this cell to indicate our cell wall. So it's boxed in by this wall structure, helps for extra protection. Let's write that in here, cell wall. There we go. And it's going to have some of the same kinds of things because, I mean, we saw these check marks, so we can put our nucleus in there. That was that organelle that's going to hold all of our genetic material, our DNA. Okay, squiggle of DNA in there. We've got other things. So we've got all those other structures. They're not written down here, but all these other structures that we drew in to that animal cell. We've got our powerhouses of those cells, those mitochondria in here. And another one here. And now we've also got chloroplasts. There's one more thing that plants also have. You don't see it as much in animal cells, those vacuoles. So this is like a big bag of water and storage. It's going to push everything else to the side. And let's squeeze in our chloroplasts in here. They are actually green. And they look very similar to mitochondria. Again, we think that they probably were free-living bacteria at some point, and then somehow they got stuck inside this cell. And they continued with the cell as it evolved. So there they are green. And yes, chloro means green. So this is what makes plants green. It means if you see some of these kinds of plants out here, variegated plants, like this one, on those white sections there, the chloroplasts are not producing that green pigment that helps them to trap sunlight. Okay, let's go to the next part. Go to the other side. Speaking of chloroplasts and mitochondria, we're going to take a brief look at this. Photosynthesis and cellular respiration. These are two really important processes. Without them, life as we know it would not be happening. So chloroplasts of plant cells, and you're highlighting this with me, right? Okay, gotcha. Chloroplasts of plant cells, they help them make food, and they do that through something called photosynthesis. This word has two parts. I've got the word photo. A photo doesn't actually mean picture. Photograph means picture made with light. So photo actually means light, and then synthesis means to make. So you're making stuff with light. Light making. It's like you're cooking something up with light. Pretty cool. So we're going to write down one of our first equations ever in grade 8 here. That's the equation for photosynthesis. So let's write that in here. I'm actually going to type to make it a little neater. Photosynthesis. So what photosynthesis is that reaction that is happening inside the chloroplasts that plants are doing. By the way, seaweeds also have chloroplasts. They're very much like plants, so they're also doing photosynthesis. Okay, so we need the components of what we give to plants. So you water your plants with water, of course. So we need water. I'm going to add some carbon dioxide. I'm going to add some light energy, usually from the sun, but if you've got indoor plants, they might be exposed to artificial light. It's still light energy, and that's going to be helpful for the plant. And then it's going to be making some food. That's sugar. It's also going to be making a gas that we're going to be using for ourselves. We breathe it in. It's oxygen. All right, cool. So this is what plants are doing to make their own food. Seaweeds are doing the same thing. I'm going to change colors. Okay. Let's try that out. Oh, change colors here. Let's go with red. It's a more of a mitochondrion type color. So in the mitochondria, we have a process called cellular respiration. Cellular respiration. Sounds like you're breathing really deep. Breathing, respiration. Okay, so what are we breathing in? We're breathing in oxygen. And we're eating sugar. We're going to break that stuff down and get energy, but this time it's chemical. We're going to be breathing out carbon dioxide as well as water. You'll notice that water, if you've ever, decided to breathe out onto a window and it gets all foggy with like the gases that are coming out of your mouth, that's water in gas form. So you can see these two reactions are opposites, right? One's going one way, the other one's going the other way. And these are very, very important reactions. Okay, we're going to get back to that later on, sometime next week. But for now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking a look at the stuff that we're going to label. So, we're going to pull out this handout here. Now, again, if you didn't get this handout, maybe you weren't here today, yesterday. You weren't at school yesterday, or somehow it missed you. That's okay, it's on your classroom. So you're going to take a quick pause here. You're going to try to label these. These are on page 26 in your textbook, which is also linked onto your classroom as a digital file. You're going to try to fill these in as best as you can. All right, so the first part here, this prokaryotic cell, this bacterium, should be fairly straightforward, even though the pictures are not exactly the same as the ones in your textbook. And this one's going to be a little bit more difficult to see. Oh, let's make this a little bit more clear. That's F, that's B, H, A, D, G, C, E. Okay, it looks like their boxes disappeared. If you feel like you're stuck and you can't really figure out what they all are, C for sure. If you can try to get E, that big one, try to get C, which is this thing right here, and G, which looks like it's this kind of greeny yellow thing that's kind of covering the outside. Okay, so pause the video and let's come back to it. All right, so now after a couple of minutes, let's check ourselves off. For the prokaryotic cell, you should have ribosomes, these little tiny dots here, genetic material, DNA, for the squiggle there, cell membrane, see, that's the inside layer, cell wall, for D, outside layer, the outside protective covering, and E is flagellum. Each of these are flagellums. Flagellum is singular, flagella is plural. Way to go, Latin grammar. It's a little different than English. So it just means whip-like stuff. Going to help the bacteria to propel through whatever it's propelling through, whether it's chicken broth or sewer water, any sort of liquid. Okay, the eukaryotic cell was a little tougher. Make sure that you're able to recognize this one, the nucleus. It's a thing that sets eukaryotic cells apart from bacteria. The cell membrane, which is the covering of the cell. And the mitochondrion is another funny Latin word where you get singular as mitochondrion, plural mitochondria. So see if you can try to recognize these. Okay, you're going to continue going through this, and this is your homework basically. So you're going to be finding this stuff on page 29 in your textbook. Okay, you're going to label the name of the organelle. Okay, so for example, A looks like it's the cell membrane. Let's put that in there. Cell membrane. And in your textbook, it just puts a blurb all together. Let's see if we can try to separate this blurb into its structure, like what that organelle is like, and its function, what it does. So this cell membrane is it's like a covering surrounding the cell. And its function, well, what does this covering do? It protects the cell and lets things in or out. Okay. So we're going to do that for both the plant cell and the animal cell. you'll notice that this is totally not a typo. It says A, B, there's no C, there's no E, there's no G. That's because you don't really see those things on an animal cell, but you see them on a plant cell. So A is still A, B is still B, there's just no C, and D is still D, right? So you're going to do your best to complete this and hand it in. And I will see you on Thursday for Microscope Lab Part 2. Take care. Bye.